Did you know that Google personalizes many searches by city, and Also Asked is the only tool to access live People Also Ask data at city level? Try for free at alsoasked.com.
Tired of SEO guesswork? Quadra's AI agent goes deeper to uncover high-impact optimizations and completes hours of SEO in minutes. Get started now.
I was going to say that SEO with Fat Joe is as peaceful as this, but then the birds are all having fights.
Testing. Yeah, okay, awesome. This is on. So I've not actually given this talk before, so we'll see how it goes. I don't think it will be 20 minutes, but if it is, that's okay, because I have exactly 20 minutes. I did travel from Toronto. We have a colleague in Vancouver. For those who know, it's on the west coast of Canada, so they traveled even farther to get here. But I'm going to jump into it because I see that the timer has started and I'm losing time. So I'm going to go through a couple of different things. We're going to talk about conversion tracking, search term report, SKU breakdown. I'm going to do a little thing on mobile, and then hopefully, if I don't have to talk too quickly, we'll have some tips, tricks, and reports at the end. I'm going to cover things we've seen doing about 40 different audits last year for different ecom brands in like the UK, Europe, Canada, obviously America. Some things you will say, well, that's obvious to me, and some things you say, oh, I haven't looked at that in a while. And so hopefully everyone can take away a little something from this to go back and whether they run the accounts or they have an agency or some sort of freelancer who does it. So first thing I'm going to talk about is conversion tracking, because obviously we know today we need more conversion tracking than ever. I'm a kid born in the 80s, so I always think of like the American TV show DuckTales, and Scrooge would always just go into his huge vault of gold. I often think that data is like a huge vault of gold. Either you've got a lot of it or you don't, and if you don't have a lot of it, that sucks, but if you do have a lot of it, then that is really, really good. But some things I've seen when people do conversion tracking, as you know, you'll go in and look at conversion summary. You'll see that there's tons and tons and tons of different goals set up, whether it's by an in-house person or an agency. And the thing I see a lot is sometimes brands will set up 2 or 3 different purchase conversions, whether someone did it by themselves instead of all 3, or someone set it up and then another person set it up, and the person who set up the second time didn't pause it the first time. Because then what you'll see is that 2 are set to primary and 1 is set to secondary. And so one thing I do in any client we take on, whether it's retainer or an audit, I always make sure that they're not double counting conversions. It seems like a stupid thing to do these days, but we see it happen when people have like a Google tag set up in GA4, or if you're on Shopify, you've got like the shopping app in GA4. A simple thing that can easily make results seem more inflated than they actually are, which is not great if you're a brand and an agency, but if you're in-house, let's not make those mistakes. You know, the other thing we see oftentimes is if you go into like a conversion value goal, things are great. And I've only seen this happen like a couple times since I've been doing paid ads for the last, well, forever basically at this point. But sometimes people go and look at the value. People don't always put a value, but a few times I've seen people put a standard value in there, whether it's £1. I've seen some agencies put like £100. So regardless of what you buy on the website, your conversion value is always going to be the default there. And so if you put, you know, £100 or £50 or $100, and then every purchase in the ad account gets triggered at $100, £100, well, that's not great because somebody bought like a $10 hat or they bought a scarf or something like that. Having it trigger to be $100 or £100 as a conversion value, obviously is going to inflate the results of the ad account. So those are things we look at when it comes to conversion tracking that people have done. Whether it's an honest mistake or they're a bit cheeky and trying to inflate the results, I don't really know and don't want to comment, but they're things that we look at. And the other thing, obviously, is making sure things like phone calls, leads, things like that are all set up correctly. And even in ecom, which is mostly what we manage, we have some clients who are like B2B ecom, so they get a lot of like leads and phone calls. Make sure those are set up correctly so we can track it. Then we're going to talk about the search term report. So I still love the search term report. Yes, Google doesn't show us as much data as they used to, even like 5-6 years ago. But I'd rather some data than no data, because Google could just say tomorrow, you know what, I'm just going to take it all away from all of you and we're all screwed. So I still love the search term report greatly. Because we look at like a furniture brand we audited before Black Friday last year. You look at the search term report, some of the keywords that they bid on. They sell like massage chairs. And so you've got obviously massage chairs. Massage chair, you've got like recliners, zero gravity chair, which is like a competitor's chair. And they had never looked at the search term report because they manage ads themselves. When you start to see what people spend money on in terms of ad spend, you start to see what people also spend money on things that they don't really sell, like a zero gravity chair, recliner. So search report is still valuable even if Google doesn't give us everything we want. And then obviously, if you're on PMax, where lots of people like PMax, some people hate it still, which is fine. You got everything from search insights, which isn't always the best, but it's good to kind of get an idea of like the themes or categories of things you're going to be bidding on. And then obviously Google has search themes where you can add search themes and try to guide the machines, which is really valuable. And then if anyone has been paying attention the last couple of weeks, Google's tried to make a point to say that the search term report is coming to PMax, which is great. So if you don't see it in your ad account currently, at some point in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, it should be in your account. About half our clients have it, both over here in the UK and over in America. And I'm glad that the search term report now exists for PMax because it's a lot better than the search insights. Okay, SKU breakdowns. Something we think about a lot is, there's a balance between how much you spend on ads and how many SKUs you have. If you've got $100 or £100 and you've got to manage 100 SKUs, it's very different than taking £100 and trying to manage 100,000 SKUs or 10,000 SKUs. I find a lot of brands will sometimes have, let's say, a small ad spend, but then they've got heaps and heaps of SKUs and they're trying to spend the money they have on so many SKUs that they end up distributing their budget so thin across SKUs that they get basically no data whatsoever. And so one thing to think about is making sure that you've got the right budget or the right amount of SKUs on the budget you're going to spend, because to spend too little money on too many SKUs, well, you're just going to spread your budget to the point that you don't get any conversions or you don't get any traction. It's kind of like if you got your car stuck in mud, you just spin your wheels and you go nowhere quickly. And so we'll get things like examples of like an EV brand. They have different brands like T-Raps and A to Z and stuff like that. And they spend a bit of money, which is really great. And then you start to look at where they spend money on 55 other brands that they have. And then you realize, okay, they only spent $800 and change, and they only got 13 conversions. But their CPA isn't great, and the return on ad spend is quite crap. And so it's starting to think about like how you spend your money across all your brands. It's better to take a small amount of money and spend it on a small amount of brands or a small amount of SKUs versus trying to take a small amount of money and spend it on all the SKUs you have because your boss or the CEO or the CMO said you should spend all the money on the little SKUs that you have. And then we did some work for like a pet accessory brand. Sort of similar case, you've got different products you have, you spent different amounts of money. Then you start to realize that certain categories of your products do really well, which is great. And then we got things like shopping feeds. So I'm not going to go into shopping feeds too much, even though that's what I usually talk about most times when it comes to brightonSEO. But I still think today, as I did years ago, that building a better shopping feed is going to lead to better results in the long run. And so I wouldn't use the Shopify Conte app. It builds a pretty rubbish shopping feed as a whole. But if you had to get up and running quickly and build a shopping feed, then I would use it just to get up and running. But then we'll get either other apps, third-party tools. If it's a small e-commerce site, we'll get using like Google Sheets to build the shopping feed. That way you can get it more customizable. And then from there, Google has this thing called Found by Google. Basically, what they do is try to scrape your website and then build a feed automatically. And I think we all know that Google, when they do automation, they either do it really well, or they do it really bad. We turn off Found by Google for all clients because it's on by default, because then it pulls in basically a secondary feed to the feed you've built, and it could override the feed you've built. So you've got, let's say, custom titles, custom descriptions. You fill in details in a certain way, like the color attribute. You don't want Google pulling in things from your website, overriding the thing you've built, because if you work in an agency or contractor, you'll have that one client who emails you because they search themselves a lot. And Found by Google is not a great thing. So if you haven't turned it off, I'd say turn it off because Google doesn't do a great job at it. And then the other thing is obviously filling out things like your required attributes for shopping feeds, filling out things like your other required attributes, whether it's brand, GNT, condition, Google product category. And then the last thing around this is obviously, beyond the attributes that are required, filling out optional attributes. The more data you can give Google in your shopping feed, the better off you are. Odds are your competitors won't do it because it's tedious and boring work, and though people don't like to do tedious and boring work, better built shopping feed is going to allow you to outrank and generally target searches a lot better than a shopping feed that Google's built themselves or a shopping feed that just has the basic stuff. Then we look at things like breaking out campaigns. Like I talked about earlier, some people just like throw everything into one campaign. You can break out your campaigns in obviously lots of different ways, whether it's brand, product. You can tier it by ROAS. You can tier it by margins. You could do all products if it's a small feed of like, let's say 10 SKUs or 20 SKUs or 30 SKUs. But when you start to get to things like 50 and 100 SKUs, putting all your products in one campaign is probably the worst thing you can do because you're basically telling Google, do what you want, and you hope that it works out for the best. Other breakouts you can do is things by seasonality. So let's say you have certain products that maybe only sell at like Christmas or Halloween or things like that. You could do best sellers, the cheapest stuff, because we know that Google looks at things from a price perspective. You go with things on sale versus not on sale. For most of our clients, they have some sort of sale section or things that are on offers. So we always have sort of some sort of sale campaign. That way we can control the budget we spend on things that are discounted. Because for some clients, things that are discounted, send an email and sell really quickly. If it doesn't, then we can use ads to help support that. But we don't always necessarily want to dump all our money into sales stuff, even though it will sell really quickly and the ROAS will look really great. And then the last thing is you can look at things based on, variance, new versus old. Good example is, iPhones come out every year. You could have a campaign that features, products geared towards the latest 1 or 2 iPhone generations. Then you can have an old campaign that's geared towards, iPhones that came out 3, 4, 5 years ago and beyond that. The other thing we think about is sort of SKU optimization, right? So the idea at the end of the day, even though our jobs are to run campaigns, is to talk with clients about why do you sell this one SKU? They may have a SKU that they launch the company with. They may have a SKU that's in a color that they love. We have a client that loves the color gray, and even though gray is the worst selling product they have, they refuse to get rid of it. And so sometimes talking with clients about, why do we get rid of this SKU or product that actually doesn't sell well on the site? It doesn't sell well by email. It doesn't sell well by paid ads is a good idea, because that will allow you to spend more time, more energy on things that do sell really, really well. And then other things to look at, if you're let's say a first-party retailer, D2C brand, you can break out SKUs by color, size, gender, version, seasonality. Lots of ways to figure out what's selling and what's not selling. If you're more a third-party retailer and you sell other people's stuff, you can do the same breakouts, but also get things based on brand or category. And then again, size and color. And then gender, version, seasonality again. And then an example I always give, during the pandemic, we worked with an outdoor brand. They're kind of like the Amazon of outdoor sports. They had 219 brands, but half their revenue only came from 5 of those brands. And so talking with the clients about why don't we just put more time and energy into selling those 5 brands versus trying to sell the other 214? Because even though everybody wants to be like Amazon, there are few people who can actually build an Amazon type brand at the end of the day. All right, year of mobile. I am 43 as of last week, Friday. And so when I was doing this talk, I was when did the iPhone come out? How old has it been? Because you often think about, the iPhone came out, there's this revolutionary thing. And ever since it came out, people always talked about every year was going to be the year of mobile. It's the year that people were going to spend a lot of money online. They were going to shop on the mobile device. And that really didn't really happen. Because we think about when iPhone came out, I think it was 07, 06. The amount of people who actually had an iPhone or any mobile phone was really small versus the people who have a mobile phone today. And if you look at what happened sort of post-pandemic, is most of our clients, at least for ecom, have half to 80% of their traffic coming from a mobile device. They also have anywhere from half to 80% of their revenue conversion coming from a mobile device. And so I think when we look at things from a trend perspective, even though people might say this is the year of AI, for example, it takes a long time to get from where the iPhone came out to where we are today. And so even though AI may be an important thing, I don't think it's necessarily the biggest opportunity we have as an industry today, because it takes a lot more time for any technology to mature. And so we're going to talk about a couple things. I think one of the biggest opportunities, whether it's in a B2B ecom brand or B2C ecom brand, is basically your mobile conversion rate. I think we've all slept in it as an industry because we're just used to people buying things on computers. If you look at this client, their mobile conversion rate is utter crap, and they sell EV parts, right? You look at what they spend over a couple weeks on mobile versus what they spend on desktop. And this is pretty much true across any one of our clients. We're seeing more and more money get spent on mobile, and more people convert. And so if we can improve our basically mobile experience, we can definitely make more money. If we go through a furniture brand that we talked about earlier, at the end of the day, they spend $100,000 on any given month. The conversion rate on mobile is basically 25% of what it is on a computer. The client was shocked when I told them this, and I'm like, you need a better website, but a better website that works a lot more better on mobile. Because if you're going to spend all this money and you get all these conversions, want to make a better experience so you can make more money, and also just have a better return on ad spend. And even though they sell furniture, for some reason, a lot of people like to visit on a mobile device and convert. Even kids' toys, which is probably something that some parents will do on a desktop because they're trying to wrangle the kids at the same time, and the kids probably have their phone. But even them, they have a low mobile conversion rate overall versus other brands, right? And they start to look at things like their CPA. The CPA, ironically, is a lot better, and their return on ad spend is a lot better. So if they can improve their mobile rate conversion rate, they'd probably make more money and be less stressed as a business. All right, there we go. For those who may be working B2B e-coms, we have clients who sell equipment to dentist office, construction stuff. I don't know if it's a thing over here, but there are trucks in America that use like turbochargers. That's some sort of thing that goes in a truck, basically. So all sorts of sort of B2B stuff that's in ecom. And even they have a worse mobile conversion rate as a whole. And if you look at sort of what they spend, their spend is pretty even. So even just improving their mobile conversion rate when their spend is pretty even across desktop computer would help improve the business as a whole, and obviously help improve both the ROAS and just how they convert as a business. Senior walk-in tubs. So a client who sells like walk-in tubs for anyone who's got like senior parents and they want to stay in their home, a walk-in tub makes a lot of sense. People who are senior generally call more than anything else, but even their mobile conversion rate is really, really bad. And so we're going to how we can improve that to improve the experience makes sense at the end of the day. UK client who sells van racks, as the UK people on the team say, everyone knows a man with a van, which that may be true, but improving the mobile conversion rate at the end of the day would mean that the client would waste less money on the mobile device, because obviously they spend a lot of money on mobile versus desktop, and they have a slightly worse CPA and a slightly worse ROAS at the end of the day. So I've got 4.5 minutes left, which is great for time in. So I'm going to go through like some tips, tricks, and things I think about when it comes to ad accounts and things we think about when we either run stuff for clients or we just do a one-off audit because someone says they want like a second pair of eyes at the end of the day. If anyone is still on Twitter or X, Mike Ryan is a great person to follow. He was a company called Smek here somewhere in Europe, but they got a lot of data on how people spend money as a whole. And we see at least up to the end of 2023, lots of people still very into PMAX, which is great. But I think if we put this chart out another year or two, we'd probably see more and more people start to adopt standard shopping more because they want to get back more of that control over their campaigns at the end of the day. But if you don't follow Mike Ryan, I think he's a great person to follow online. But some things we think about across clients is looking at things like from the day of the week perspective. Even though Google says they optimize things, I will battle or back and I don't trust Google, so I look at things at day of the week to make sure Google isn't just wasting money on a day of the week that's really, really bad. I.e. for a dental client, we just have shitty weekends at times because dentist offices are not always open on weekends in America. I still look at things from a network breakdown perspective, especially if you're running PMAX or not running PMAX, or sometimes people have the search partners still turned on because they didn't realize Google has it on by default. So looking at things from that perspective, I think really helpful to make sure that you're not wasting money in areas that you assumed you wouldn't be wasting money. Maybe you went on vacation and a colleague launched a campaign, but the colleague was stressed that they didn't turn off the display network or the search partners network as an example. I think the least used section in any account we ever look at is the reports editor section. I think it's easier to build a report in there and looking at it versus looking inside the ad account as a whole. So just building out reports either by product type or building out reports by location is super, super helpful. I think location is great because this was a client we did an audit for, I want to say at the end of 2023 actually. And basically the agency didn't listen to the client when the client said, they only want to target America. The agency heard something else and removed America as a targeting country. And because they didn't explicitly tell Google where they want to target, they tried to put basically 200 countries as negative locations, but they forgot countries like India, Ghana, and these other countries that I can't think of what the name is right now. But basically when they removed America as a targeting location, in Google's infinite wisdom, they started to show ads in like India, Ghana, these places the client doesn't want to go. And even though the CPA looks really great because people in those countries were converting, if I can't sell my product in India or Ghana or other countries, there's no point in showing my ads. And so making sure that you don't have ads showing locations you don't want to show is really, really helpful at the end of the day. So location reports is an easy thing to build in Google Ads reports. And then more location people who spend money in places they don't want to spend money, which is not a great thing. And so at the end of the day, you always want to make sure you've built the best shopping feed possible at the end of the day. Google often makes it seem like it's really easy to build a feed, and people often think it's kind of like going in the ring with Mike Tyson. I need to work on my feed. But I often think a shopping feed is kind of like the punch-up video game when I was a little kid. If you don't prepare and perhaps your shopping feed, you're probably not going to have the greatest experience when you actually try to show your ads. And so as controversial as this might be, I don't think AI is the biggest opportunity we have in the industry. I think things like mobile UX and the shopping feeds are more important right now because people are spending money right now and blowing tons and tons of dollars every day on things that actually aren't converting as well as it could convert. And with my last minute I also run a PPC salary survey on Reddit, and so that's the link to it. I think this year we got 820 results. The UK is our second largest country we got, and then it's the Netherlands, and then Canada, and then Europe as a whole. So if you're like an employee or you own an agency or a freelance, you want to get an idea of what other people are making, or you're going to like hire someone new, I'd say check it out, because we've got 820 responses this year. It's actually at the end of the year we've done this. It's a good way to make sure that you're not being underpaid as a whole, or that you need to just pay your people more if you're like me and you own a small agency. My name's Duane, that is my talk, and I am 40 seconds under, so that is a good thing. Thank you.